Even if it screws up my case, you're free to do that. You've given up enough for me already. Death looked at him with watery eyes. Really? He said. It came out in a hoarse whisper. Perry moved the breakfast tray that covered Death's laptop, then opened the laptop and positioned it where Death could reach it. It's all yours, buddy. Whatever you want to say, say it. Let your freak flag fly. Death cried again then, silent tears slipping down his hollow cheeks. Perry got him some Kleenex from the bathroom and he blew his nose and wiped his face and grinned at them all, a toothless, wet, ruined smile that made Perry's heart lurch. Jesus. 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 What the hell was he doing? This kid, he would never get the life he had back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Death said. Please don't be grateful to me. Perry said. We owe you the thanks around here. Remember that. We haven't done you any favors. All the favors around here have come from you. Any lawyer shows up here again representing me, I want you to email me. In the car back, no one said anything until they were within sight of the shantytown. Kettlewell isn't going to like this. Suzanne said. Yeah, I expect not. Perry said. He can go fuck himself. Imagineering sent the prototype up to Sammy as soon as it was ready. The actual engineers who'd been working on it schlepping it into his office. He'd been careful to cultivate their friendship through the weeks of production, taking them out for beers and delicately letting them know that they were just the sort of people who really understood what Disney Parks was about. Not like those Philistines who comprised the rest of the management layer at Disney. He learned their kids' names and forwarded jokes to them by email. He dropped by their break room and let them beat him at pinball on their gigantic, bizarre, multi-board homebrew machine, letting them know just how cool said machine was. Now it was paying off. Judging from the device he was looking at, a breadbox-sized, go-away green round-shouldered smooth box that it took two of them to carry in. Watch this. One of them said. He knocked a complicated pattern on the box's top and a hidden hatch opened out of the side, yawning out and forming a miniature staircase from halfway down the box's surface to the ground. There was soft music playing inside the box, a jazzy, up-tempo futuristic version of When You Wish Upon a Star. A little man appeared in the doorway. He looked like he was made of pipe cleaners and he took the stairs in 3 wobbling strides. He ignored them as he lurched around the box's perimeter until he came to a far corner, then another hatch slid away and the little man reached inside and tugged out the plug and the end of the power cord. He hugged the plug to his chest and began to wander around Sammy's desk, clearly looking for an electrical outlet. It's a random walk search algorithm. One of the Imagineers said. Watch this. After a couple of circuits of Sammy's desk, the little robot went to the edge and jumped, hanging on to the power cable, which unspooled slowly from the box like a belay line, gently lowering the man to the ground. A few minutes later, he had found the electrical outlet and plugged in the box. The music inside stilled and a fanfare began. The trumpeting reached a joyous peak. It found a network connection and then subsided into marching band music. There was a smell like saran wrap in the microwave. A moment later, another pipe cleaner man emerged from the box, lugging a chunk of plastic that looked like the base of a rocket in an old-timey science fiction movie. The first pipe cleaner man was shinnying up the power cable. He crested the desktop and joined his brother in ferrying out more parts. Each one snapped into the previous one with a Lego-like click. Taking shape on the desktop in slow stages, the original 1955 Tomorrowland, complete with the rocket to the moon, the clock of the world and Dairy Farmers of America present the cow of tomorrow. Sammy said, peering at the little brass plaque on the matchbox-sized diorama, which showed a cow with an IV in her hock, watching a video of a pasture. You kidding me? No one Imagineer said. It's all for real. The archives have all these tight, high-res 3D models of all the rides the park's ever seen. This is totally historically accurate. The Kaiser Aluminum Hall of Fame. The Monsanto Hall of Chemistry. Thimbledrome Flight Circle, with tiny flying miniature airplanes. Holy crap. Sammy said. People paid to see these things, go on. The other Imagineer said. Take the roof off the Hall of Chemistry. Sammy did, and was treated to a tiny, incredibly detailed 3D model of the Hall's interior exhibits, complete with tiny people in 1950s garb marveling at the truly crappy exhibits. We print to 1200 dpi with these. We can put pupils on the eyeballs at that res. The pieces were still trundling out. Sammy picked up the Monsanto Hall of Chemistry and turned it over and over in his hands, looking at the minute detail, admiring the way all the pieces snapped together. It's kind of brittle. The first Imagineer said. He took it from Sammy and gave it a squeeze and it cracked with a noise like an office chair rolling over a sheet of bubble wrap. The pieces fell to the desk. A pipe cleaner man happened upon a shard after a moment and hugged it to his chest, then toddled back into the box with it. There's a little optical scanner in there. It'll figure out which bit this piece came from and print another one. Total construction of this model takes about 2 hours. You built this entire thing from scratch in 3 weeks. The Imagineers laughed. No way. No, almost all the code and designs came off the net. Most of this stuff was developed by new work startups back in the day, or by those ride weirdos down in Hollywood. We just shoved it all into this box and added the models for some of our old rides from the archives. This was easy, man, easy. Sammy's head swam. Easy. This thing was undeniably super cool. He wanted one. Everyone was going to want one. You can print these as big as you want, too, if we gave it enough time, space and feedstock. It'd run these buildings at full size. The miniature Tomorrowland was nearly done. It was all brave, sad white curves, like the set of a remake of Rollerball, and featured tiny people in 1950s clothes. Sun dresses and salaryman hats. Black-rimmed glasses and scout uniforms for the boys. Sammy goggled at it. He moved the little people around, lifted off the lids. Man. I'd seen the 3D models and fly-throughs, but they nothing compared to actually seeing it, owning it. People will want libraries of these things. Whole rooms devoted to them, one of the Imagineers said. Sammy knew his name, but he'd forgotten it. He had a whole complicated scheme for remembering people's names by making up stories about them, but it was a lot of work. Well, about that. This feedstock is very fast-setting, but it doesn't really weather well. Even if you stored it in a dark, humidity-controlled room, it'd start to delaminate and fall to pieces within a month or 2. Leave it in the living room in direct sunlight and it'll crumble within a couple days. Sammy pursed his lips and thought for a while. Please tell me that there's something proprietary we can require in the feedstock that can make us into the sole supplier of consumables for this thing, maybe. We could certainly tag the goop with something proprietary and hunt for it when we do the build, refuse to run on anyone else's goop. Of course, that won't be hard to defeat, we'll sue anyone who tries it. Sammy said. Oh, boys, you've outdone yourselves. Seriously. If I could give you a raise. I would. As it is, take something home from the architectural salvage lot and sell it on eBay. It's as close to a bonus as this fucking company's going to pay any of us. They looked at him quizzically, with some alarm, and he smiled and spread his hands. Ha ha, only serious boys. Really take some stuff home. You've earned it. Try and grab something from the ride system itself, that's got the highest book value. They left behind a slim folder with production notes and estimates, suppliers who would be likely to bid on a job like this. He'd need a marketing plan, too, but this was farther than he ever thought he'd get. He could show this to legal and to the board, and yes, to Wiener and the rest of the useless committee. He could get everyone lined up behind this and working on it. Hell, if he spun it right, they'd all be fighting to have their pet projects instantiated with it. He fiddled with a couple of overnight shippers' sites for a while. Trying to figure out what it would cost to sell these in the park and have them waiting on the Marks' doorsteps when they got back home. There were lots of little details like that, but ultimately, this was good and clean. It would extend the park's reach right into the living rooms of their customers, giving them a new reason to think of the park every day. Kettlewell and Jan looked up when Perry banged through the door of the tea house they'd turned into their de facto headquarters. Perry had gone through Mad and back to calm on the ride home, but as he drew closer to the tea house, passing the people in the streets, the people living their lives without lawyers or bullshit, his anger came back. He'd even stopped outside the tea house and breathed deeply, but his heart was pounding and his hands kept balling into fists, and sometimes you've just got to go for it. He got to the table and grabbed the papers there and tossed them over his shoulder. You re-fired. He said. Pack up and go. I want you out by morning. You done here. You don't represent the ride and you never will. Get lost. He didn't know he was going to say it until he said it. But it felt right. This was what he was feeling. His project had been stolen and bad things were being done in his name, and it was going to stop, right now. Jan and Kettlewell got to their feet and looked at him, faces blank with shock. Kettlewell recovered first. Perry, let us sit down and do an exit interview, all right. That's traditional. Perry was shaking with anger now. These two friends of his, they de-fucking screwed him, committed their dirty work in his name. But Kettlewell was holding a chair out to him and the others in the tea house were staring, and he thought about Eva and the kids and the baseball gloves, and he sat down. He squeezed his thighs hard with his clenching hands, drew in a deep breath, and recited what Death Waits had told him in an even, wooden voice. So that's it. I don't know if you instructed the lawyers to do this or only just distanced yourself enough from them to let them do this on their own. The point is that the way you rerunning this campaign is victimizing people who believe in us, making life worse for people who already got a shitty deal on our account. I won't have it. Kettlewell and Jan looked at each other. They both stayed poker-faced through Perry's accusation, and now Kettlewell made a little go-ahead gesture at Jan. There's no excuse for what that lawyer did. We didn't authorize it, we didn't know it had happened, and we wouldn't have permitted it if we had. In a suit like this, there are a lot of moving parts and there's no way to keep track of all of them all of the time. You don't know what every ride operator in the world is up to, you don't even know where all the rides in the world are. That's in the nature of a decentralized business. But here's the thing, the lawyer was at least partly right. Everything that kid blogs, emails, and says will potentially end up in the public record. Like it or not, that kid can no longer consider himself to have a private life, not until the court case is up. Neither can you or I for that matter. That's in the nature of a lawsuit, and it's not something any of us can change at this point. Perry heard him as from a great distance, through the whooshing of the blood in his ears. He didn't think of anything to say to that. Jan and Kettlewell looked at each other. So even if we refired, Jan said at last, making sarcastic finger quotes, this problem won't go away. We've floated the syndicate and given control of the legal case to them. If you try to ditch it, you're going to have to contend with their lawsuits. 2. I didn't Perry started. But he signed all kinds of papers. First, papers that incorporated the Ride Runners Co-op, and second, papers that gave legal representation over to the syndicate. Perry. I am the chairman of the Boston Ride Collective. I am their rep on the co-op's board. You can fire me. You didn't hire me. They did. So stop breathing through your nose like a locomotive and calm down. None of us wanted that lawyer to go after that kid. He knew they were making sense, but he didn't want to care. He ended up in this place because these supposed pals of his had screwed up. He knew that he was going to end up making up with them, going to end up getting deeper into this. He knew that this was how good people did shitty things, one tiny rotten compromise at a time. Well, he wasn't going to go there. Tomorrow morning. He said. Gone. We can figure out by email how to have a smooth transition, but no more of this. Not on my head. Not on my account. He stalked away, which is what he should have done in the first place. Fuck being reasonable. Reasonable sucked. Death found out about the Disney in a box printers seconds after they were announced. He'd been tuning his feed watchers to give him news about the Disney parks for nearly a decade, and this little PR item on the Disney Parks newswire rang all the cherries on his filters, flagging the item red and rocketing it to the top of his news playlist, making all the icons in the sides of his screen bounce with delight. The announcement made him want to throw up. They were totally ripping off the rides, and he knew for a fact that most of the 3D meshes of the old Yesterland rides and even the contemporary ones were fan-made, so those be ripped off. 2. And the worst part was, he could feel himself getting excited. This was just the kind of thing that would have given him major fanboy drool as recently as a month ago. He just stared angrily at his screen. Being angry made the painkillers wear off, so the madder he got the more he hurt. He could nail the rocker switch and dose himself with more of whatever the painkiller plugged into his IV was today, but since Perry and Lester and their girlfriends had that other one been Suzanne Church. It sure looked like her had told him he could use his laptop again, he stayed off the juice as much as possible. The computer could make him forget he hurt. He looked at the clock. It was 4 a.m. The blinds on the ward were shut most of the time, and he kept to his own schedule, napping and then surfing, then nodding off and then surfing some more. The hospital staff just left his food on the table beside him if he was asleep when it arrived, though they woke him for his sponge baths and to stick fresh needles in his arms, which were filled with bruisey collapsed veins. There was no one he could tell about this. Sure, there were chat rooms with 24/7 chatter from Disney freaks, but he didn't much want to chat with them. Some of his friends would still be up and tweaking, but Christ, who wanted to IM with a speed freak at 4 in the morning? His typing was down to less than 30 WPM, and he couldn't keep it up for long. What he really wanted was to talk to someone about this. He really wanted to talk to Perry about this. He should send him an email, but he had the inkling of an idea and he didn't want to put it in writing, because it was a deliciously naughty idea. It was dumb to even think about phoning him, he barely knew him, and no one liked to get calls at 4 am. Besides he checked Perry's number was unlisted. From, deathw at deathwait.er to P. Gibbons at hollywood.ride subject. What's your phone number? Perry. I know that it's presumptuous, but I'd really like to talk to you V2V about something important that I'd prefer not to put in writing. I don't have any right to impose on you, especially not after you've already done me the kindness of coming to see me in the hospital, but I hope you'll send me your number anyway. Alternatively, please call me on my ANUM 1800DEATHWAITSGGFSAH. Your admirer. Death waits. It was 5 minutes later when his laptop rang. It was unnaturally loud on the ward, and he heard his roommates stir when the tone played. He didn't have a headset. Christ, he was an idiot. Wait, there was one, dangling from the TV. No mic, but at least he could pair it with his laptop for sound. He stabbed at the mute button and reached for the headset and slipped it on. Then he held the computer close to his face and whispered hello into its little mic. His voice was a croak, his ruined mouth distorting the word. Why had he decided to call this guy? He was such an idiot. This is Perry Gibbons. Is that Death Waits? Yes, sorry. I don't have a mic. Can you hear me okay? If I turn the volume all the way up I can. There was an awkward silence. Death tried to think of how to begin. What's on your mind? Death, I didn't expect you to be awake at this hour, I had a rough night. Perry said. It occurred to Death that he was talking to one of his heroes, a man who had come to visit him in the hospital that day. He grew even more tongue-tied. What happened? Nothing important. Perry said and swallowed, and Death suddenly understood that Perry had had a rough night because of him, because of what he told Perry. It made him want to cry. I am sorry. Death said. What's on your mind? Death, Perry said again. Death told him what he found about the Disney printers. He read Perry the URLs so he could look them up. Okay, that's interesting. Perry said. Death could tell he didn't really think it was that interesting. I haven't told you my idea yet. He groped for the words. His mouth had gone dry. Okay, so Disney's going to ship these things to tons of people's houses, they'll sell them cheap at the parks and mail them as freebies to Magic Kingdom Club Gold Card holders. So in a week or two, there's going to be just, tons of these across the country, right? So here's my idea, what if you could get them to build non-Disney stuff? What if you could send them plans for stuff from the rides? What if you could just download your friends' designs? What if this was opened wide? Perry chuckled on the other end of the line, then laughed. Full-throated and full of merriment. I like the way you think. Kid. He said, once he caught his breath. And then this amazing thing happened. Perry Gibbons brainstormed with him about the kinds of designs they could push out to these things. It was like some kind of awesome dream come true. Perry was treating him like a peer, loving his ideas, keying off of them. Then a dismal thought struck him. Wait though. Wait. They reusing their own goop for the printers. Every design we print makes them richer. Perry laughed again, really merry. Oh, that kind of thing never works. They've been trying to tie feedstock to printers since the inkjet days. We go through that like wet Kleenex, isn't that illegal, who the fuck knows? It shouldn't be. I don't care about illegal anymore. Legal gets you lawyers. Come on, dude, what's the point of being all into some anti-authoritarian subculture if you spend all your time sucking up to the authorities? Death laughed, which actually hurt quite a bit. It was the first laugh he'd had since he'd ended up in the hospital. Maybe the first one since he'd been fired from Disney World, and as much as it hurt, it felt good. Too, like a band being loosened from around his broken ribs. His roommates stirred and one of them must have pushed the nurse call button, because shortly thereafter, the formidable Ukrainian nurse came in and savagely told him off for disturbing the ward at 5 in the morning. Perry heard and said his goodbyes, like they were old pals who'd chatted too long, and Deathwaits rang off and fell into a light doze, grinning like a maniac. Hilda eyed Perry curiously. That sounded like an interesting conversation. She said. She was wearing a long t-shirt of his that didn't really cover much, and she looked delicious in it. It was all he could do to keep from grabbing her and tossing her on the bed. Of course, the cast meant that he didn't really do that. And Hilda wasn't exactly smiling. Either. Sorry. I didn't mean to wake you up. He said. It wasn't the talking that did it, it was you not being there in the first place. Gave me the toss and turns. She came over to him then, the lean muscles in her legs flexing as she crossed the living room. She took his laptop away and set it down on the coffee table, then took off his headset. He was wearing nothing but boxers, and she reached down and gave his dick a companionable honk before sitting down next to him and giving him a kiss on the cheek, the throat and the lips. So, Perry, she said, looking into his eyes. What the fuck are you doing sitting in the living room at 5 a.m. talking to your computer? And why didn't you come to bed last night? I am not going to be hanging out in Florida for the rest of my life. I woulda thought you'd want to maximize your Hilda time while you've got the chance. She smiled to let him know she was kidding around, but she was right, of course. I am an idiot. Hilda. I fired Jan and Kettlewell, told them to get lost. I don't know why you think that's such a bad idea. You need business people, probably, but it doesn't need to be those guys. Sometimes you can have too much history with someone to work with him. Besides, anything can be unsaid. You can change your mind in a week or a month. Those guys aren't doing anything special. They'd come back to you if you asked them. You Perry motherfucking Gibbons. You rule. Dude, you a very nice person. Hilda Hammerson. But those guys are running our legal defense, which we going to need, because I am about to do something semi-illegal that's bound to get us sued again by the same pack of assholes as last time. Disney. She snorted. Have you ever read up on the history of the Disney company? The old one, the one Walt founded. Walt Disney wasn't just a racist creep, he was also a mad inventor. He kept coming up with these cool high-tech ways of making cartoons, sticking real people in them, putting them in color, adding sync sound. People loved it all, but it drove him out of business. It was all too expensive. So he recruited his brother, Roy Disney, who was just a banker, to run the business. Roy turned the business around, watching the income and the outgo. But all this came at a price. Roy wanted to tell Walt how to run the business. More to the point, he wanted to tell Walt that he didn't just spend millions from the company coffers on weird-ass R&D projects, especially not when the company was still figuring out how to exploit the last R&D project Walt had chased. But it was Walt's company, and he'd overrule Roy, and Roy would promise that it was going to put them in the poorhouse, and then he'd figure out how to make another million off of Walt's vision, because that's what the money guy is supposed to do. Then after the war, Walt went to Roy and said, "Give me $17 million. I am going to build a theme park." And Roy said, "You can have it, and what's a theme park?" Walt threatened to fire Roy, the way he always had, and Roy pointed out that Disney was now a public company with shareholders who weren't going to let Walt cowboy around and piss away their money on his toys, so how'd he get Disneyland built? He quit. He started his own company. Wed for Walter Elias Disney. He poached all the geniuses away from the studios and turned them into his Imagineers and cashed in his life insurance policy and raised his own dough and built the park, and then made Roy buy the company back from him. I am guessing that felt pretty good. It sounds like it must be. Perry said. He was feeling thoughtful, and buzzed from the sleepless night, and jazzed from his conversation with Death Waits. He had an idea that they could push designs out to the printers that were like the Disney designs, but weird and kinky and subversive and a little disturbing. I can understand why you'd be nervous about ditching your suits, but they just that, suits. At some level, they all interchangeable, mercenary parts. You want someone to watch the bottom line. But not someone who run the show. If that's not these guys. Hey, that's cool. Find a couple more suits and run them. Jesus, you really are Yoko, Aaron to. Lester was wearing his boxers and a bleary grin, standing in the living room's doorway where Hilda had stood a minute before. It was past 6 a.m. now, and there were waking up sounds through the whole condo, toilets flushing, a car starting down in the parking lot. Good morning, Lester, Hilda said. She smiled when she said it. No offense taken, all good. All good. You fired who now? Perry. Lester dug a pint of chocolate ice cream out of the freezer and attacked it with a self-heating ceramic spoon that he designed specifically for this purpose. I got rid of Kettlewell and Jan. Perry said. He was blushing. I would have talked to you about it, but you were with Suzanne. I had to do it. Though. I had to. I hate what happened to Death Waits. I hate that we've got some of the blame for it. But Perry. Jan and Kettlewell are part of our outfit. It's their show, too. You can just go shit canning them. Not just morally. Either. Legally. Those guys own a piece of this thing and they keeping the lawyers at bay too. They managing all the evil shit so we don't have to. I don't want to be in charge of the evil, and neither do you, and hiring a new suit isn't going to be easy. They all predatory, they all have delusions of grandeur, you two have the acumen to hire better representation than those two. Hilda said. You experienced now, and you've founded a movement that plenty of people would kill to be a part of. You just need better management structure, an executive you can overrule whenever you need to. A lackey, not a boss. Lester acted as though he hadn't heard her. I am being pretty mellow about this. Buddy. I am not making a big deal out of the fact that you did this without consulting me, because I know how rough it must have been to discover that this wickedness had gone down in our name, and I might have done the same. But it's the cold light of day now and it's time to go over there together and have a chat with Jan and Kettlewell and talk this over and sort it out. We can afford to burn all this to the ground and start over now. Perry knew it was reasonable, but screw reasonable. Reasonable was how good people ended up doing wrong. Sometimes you had to be unreasonable. Lester, they violated our trust. It was their responsibility to do this thing and do it right. They didn't do that. They didn't look closely at this thing so that they wouldn't have to put the brakes on if it turned out to be dirty. Which do you think those two would rather have happen? We run a cool project that everyone loves, or we run a lawsuit that makes $10 billion for their investors? They replaying a different game from us and their victory condition isn't ours. I don't want to be reasonable. I want to do the right thing. You and me could have sold out 1,000 times over the years and made money instead of doing good, but we didn't. We didn't because it's better to be right than to be reasonable and rich. You say we can afford to get rid of those two. I say we can afford not to. You need to get a good night's sleep. Buddy, Lester said. He was blowing through his nose, a sure sign that he was angry. It made Perry's hackles go up. He and Lester didn't fight much, but when they did. Hoo boy. You need to mellow out and see that what you talking about is abandoning our friends. Kettlewell and Jan, to make our own egos feel a little better. You need to see that we risking everything, risking spending our lives in court and losing everything we've ever built. A zen-like calm descended on Perry. Hilda was right. Suits were everywhere, and you could choose your own. You didn't need to let the Roy Disneys of the world call the shots. I am sorry you feel that way. Lester. I hear everything you saying, but you know what, it's going to be my way. I understand that what I want to do is risky, but there's no way I can go on doing what I am doing and letting things get worse and worse. Making a little compromise here and there is how you end up selling out everything that's important. We going to find other business managers and we going to work with them to make a smooth transition. Maybe we'll all come out of this friends later on. They want to do something different from what I want to do is all. This wasn't calming Lester down at all. Perry, this isn't your project to do what you want with. This belongs to a lot of us. I did most of the work in there. You did, buddy. I get that. If you want to stick with them, that's how it'll go. No hard feelings. I'll go off and do my own thing, run my own ride. People who want to connect to my network, no sweat, they can do it. That's cool. We'll still be friends. You can work with Kettlewell and Jan. Perry could hardly believe these words were coming out of his mouth.